Hello, everyone, and thanks for being with us today. We're going to start in a minute and a half, and I was wondering if the kind guys who are already there could tell me if they can hear audio okay. Hello, hello. Yes. Thank you so much, Wilfried. Danke vielmals. Obrigado, José. Thank you so much for being there. I'm going to start trying to share my screen, and if you can tell me, and if you see my screen, then we're good to go. Screen there. Okay, gracias, José. I don't know if you're Spanish or Portuguese. I took the liberty to think you were Portuguese, but maybe I was wrong. Apologies for that. Okay, obrigado. All right, so it's 6 o'clock. So I'm going to start recording this thing for the people who can't attend. I think I will actually even figure out a way to do it. It's actually already recording. So without further ado, thank you so much for being here. My name is Juan. I'm one of the co-founders of Darwinex, and I happen to oversee the regulatory side of things. And my goal today is to share what we know and what we don't know about the whole Brexit jamboree. So it's called Darwinex and Brexit. And my goal is to run through the agenda that I outlined here, which is to give you a brief primer on the today's existing regulatory status, which is bound to change by the end of the December this year, by the time that the UK leaves the European Union. Then we're going to discuss what's known about Brexit, and what I call the known knowns in Donald Rumsfeld speak. And then we'll also be discussing the known unknowns. And as you'll see, there's a ton of those, unfortunately, courtesy of our fellow political leaders. That we're going to discuss in the light of all the above what this means for existing clients and then also for future clients. And I'll be very happy to discuss in Q&A any questions you might have regarding this particular topic or indeed anything else Darwinex. So feel free, go along. Feel free to ask any questions. I'll be seeing those as I go through the agenda. If I feel they're relevant to that point, I'll go there and then. And if not, I'll keep them for the end. But don't worry, your questions will be answered to the best of my knowledge. Right. So let's get going on the first point, which is what we know, because that's the one bit that is under control. So I guess the main point from this thing is that you should not be worried in the sense that whatever happens, we've got all the options covered. The reason being that we have applied and will begin operations with a Spanish license from January 1st, meaning we will retain the legal rights to market to any EU customers and of course maintain any existing EU customers. We will also retain our FCA license, which basically means for anybody who lives either in the UK or outside of Europe, this webinar is not all that interesting because nothing's really going to change for them. One way or the other, you don't really need to worry about things changing because all customers will receive the very identical terms of service. They will experience the same prices, same liquidity, same customer service, same technology. All that changes is a couple of lines in the terms and conditions. Then we'll talk about the potential transition for existing clients if there had to be one, because we're not sure there had to be one. I mean, it could all well be that nothing really changes following Brexit. And then we'll discuss the potential options for future clients. So today's situation is there's the European Securities and Markets Authority, which is the pan-European body that issues the legislation for anything to do with investment firms, which is commonly known as MiFID and MiFID II and a whole host of downstream regulation, which is binding in every member state, including, of course, the UK for as long as it remained a member state. And what happens is that ESMA publishes some guidelines, which is then down to the national regulator to adapt to national practices. But there is a common framework, which is known as passporting rights. So, for instance, I'm just going to briefly go into this hyperlink, which will show how a FCA regulated company shows up under the, say, the BaFin register. I don't know what you see right now. I think you're seeing my web browser. So you should be seeing something which goes Bundesanstalt für Finanzdienstleistungsaufsicht. Okay. So can you guys confirm that you're seeing my browser instead of my PowerPoint presentation now? Because otherwise I'll be talking into the void. Okay, no one's complaining, so I assume everybody's seeing my browser. Yes, BaFin browser. So Wilfried is saying it, so Wilfried actually understands it. So what this is showing is the different MiFID-based permissions that we hold in the UK, which is basically structured by instruments, and also the types of activities that we do. And this is basically a copy of the permissions we hold with the FCA, which has then communicated this to, in this case, the German regulator. And then any German customers can go and see, oh yeah, these guys, they have the permissions to do what they're doing, so I can engage with them, no problem. Similarly, if you were, say, Spanish, then you would go for the Spanish copy of this thing, which is published by the Spanish regulator. Unfortunately, I've opened this in the wrong browser. I'm just going to move this to the other browser window. So what you're seeing now is the equivalent thing, all said in Spanish, but same thing, same MiFID equivalent framework. Okay, that's the situation today. Now, what we're using in this case is a passport whereby the home regulator, in this case the FCA, for our FCA regulated entity, gets permissions to operate remotely with German customers, the Spanish customers, and any other one of the other 27 member states. So that's today, and that's going to run until the 31st of December 2020. Then what happens after that? Well, no one really knows, because as I'm sure you've been reading in the headlines, they still haven't really negotiated the full Brexit agreement. Now, what we do know though is what could happen in the worst possible case. So in the worst possible case, I mean, no one's talking about splitting up the European Union. So anybody who's onshore, because we'll have a Spanish entity, will enjoy passporting rights to any EU country, which basically means if you are a EU customer, you can continue engaging with the same team, same risk, same technology as you have up to now. But you will no longer contract by default with the FCA. Okay, now the FCA entity, which we're going to continue keeping, will possibly operate under a framework which is known as equivalence. And equivalence is basically the closest thing that you can get to this passporting rights. And that would be sort of the way that, for instance, Switzerland operates with the European Union. So it's a very, very, very close framework that both sides sort of acknowledge as being equivalent, and therefore there's no issues there. Now, the one thing we do know is that worst case, there's going to be a term that's called reverse solicitation, which is very relevant in the case of Darwinex. So I'm going to ask a question here because it's always useful. It's like, out of the 17 people who are now in this webinar, how many of you guys, what was the way you first came across Darwinex? Because this is genuinely interesting to us. And I can tell you which way it wasn't, and that's advertising. We don't really do any advertising. So there's a web search. Dimitrios is asking, what was the question? And the question was, which way did you first learn about Darwinex? Forum post? Hamish Haddo, Hamish, you basically say you never heard of us, but you're still in a webinar that we're doing. So can you be a bit more specific? So a friend told you about it, YouTube, web search from a friend, YouTube, exactly. And Hamish is laughing. Yeah, that's exactly the point. So none of you guys, and none of the existing kind of 4,500 or 5,000 clients we've currently got ever came to us because of advertising, because we don't really advertise. The way that you guys came to us is because somebody told you and you approached us. And this is key because it means that you solicited our services. And this is key because all the conversations about Brexit, no one has really said that there will be any issues with us engaging with our FCA entity engaging with a customer anywhere in the world, provided the customer comes to us instead of us going to the customer. And what this means is that provided this is the case, which we think is going to be for the foreseeable future, we will offer customers the choice of whether they wish to contract with our EU regulated entity or with our FCA entity. Okay, so I hope that explained the long and the short. The crux of this whole Brexit thing is that provided we don't do advertising and people reach us of their own accord, then they will have the choice of whether they go with our FCA entity or our European regulated entity, so that nothing potentially changes. I think I've discussed the passporting and the equivalence in the previous part of the discussion. So what does that mean in a nutshell from what we know? Well, to summarize, if you hail from the outside the European Union, again, you don't really need to worry about this webinar because you'll continue to engage with our FCA entity by default. You will be subject to the Financial Services Compensation Scheme, which is the UK's National Deposit Guarantee Scheme, plus the existing insurance we offer to customers, which guarantees customer assets for up to £500,000 in excess of the FSCS. UK customers stay with the FCA regulator. Again, no questions there. We will, for the Spanish customers, default to the national regulator because it's easier for them. I mean, there's a lot of hassles they have to go through right now to report monies held outside of Spain and so on. We are in the process of negotiating banking connections in Spain. We will most likely secure banking connections in Germany as well, because nothing forces us to hold client monies in Spain if we cater to, by virtue of catering to the Spanish regulation. So most likely we'll try to have customer monies in a country like Germany. They will enjoy the Spanish deposit insurance guarantee, and we are looking right now into the options of extending the Lloyd's insurance into our European entity. At this point, unfortunately, I have to say that everybody is running around like headless chickens with the whole Brexit situation. So I can't guarantee that we will be able to offer this from the get-go. But as I said, our aspiration is to offer identical terms for all clients, regardless of which entity they contract with. So that's very much our intention. And yeah, again, for any EU customers, the point holds, provided they approached us and the reverse solicitation, the choice of whether they paper with our FCA entity or our CNMV entity is theirs. One way or the other, they're going to see the exact same trading terminal, they're going to trade on the exact same spreads, trading terms, and customer support. So nothing really changes other than the legal side of things. Okay, so that was what I had in mind for today. So unfortunately, I'm not as good as my wife at multitasking, so I'll actually start reading your questions right now. If you have any more, just go ahead and type them now, because I'll be very happy to take them now. So Miguel is asking, I never use the Darwinex services. Is the best way to join a little while after the Britain switch period? And the answer is, nothing's really going to change. You will enjoy the same services before or after, regardless of which entity you work with. So I don't really think you will not be better off by waiting until later, because nothing's really going to change in that setup. Not sure if there are. I'm just going through all the questions we've seen before. Yeah, so Peter is asking, will you offer interactive brokers accounts for clients from EU and the non-EU regulations? Let me just try and digest this. Clients from EU and the non-EU regulations. So I presume you mean, Peter, if you could open up an interactive broker's account with our FCA entity, and the answer is, if you came to us, then certainly not an issue. And of course, if you're already a customer and you already hold an account with the FCA, you can already get the interactive broker's account. So the answer is yes, we will offer them. Okay, so Pedro is asking, when will Darwinex be CNMV ready, and will you transfer the funds from the UK bank to the Spanish bank? So our application with the CNMV has long been with them, and nothing suggests that we should not be ready to start from as early as possible in January. We will not start this year because the way things are set up in Spain, we have to carry a whole host of yearly costs, even if we don't use the thing for a full year. So we are not anticipating this before the year end in order to save a whole bunch of money, which is better spent on improvements to the spreads and the product. But the answer is, Pedro, as soon as early in January 2021. So Jose is asking, being from an EU country, the services will be the same except that insurance thing. Do you think we will have the same insurance soon? So our aspiration is to enable the insurance as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this is sort of outside of our control. We are discussing this with the insurers. They're looking into it. We're not the only ones in that position. So there's every intention to make that happen, but they have to look into which way to structure the policies so that instead of covering a regulated entity, they cover a group of regulated entities. That's really what's holding them back. The aspiration is to have the same insurance, but bear in mind that you already enjoy anyhow, I think it's 100,000 euros of Spanish deposit insurance guarantee, which is as good as European backed deposit insurance guarantee. So Dimitrios is asking, which regulation will apply for existing customers like myself? So existing customers have already papered with the FCA entity, and unless someone forces us to switch you over from across entities, we will keep you where you are. So if you are already an FCA customer, then you will remain an FCA customer. If you're not, and you started as a new customer from the point where we've got both options, then provided you came under reverse solicitation, our intention is to offer you the choice. So Pedro asked us if we will transfer the funds from the UK bank to a Spanish bank. So that's one of the things we have to discuss. So what would be your preference, Pedro, just to know? Like, would you like to stay with the FCA entity, or would you like to go for the CNMV entity? Because I think it should be possible for us to transfer customers and assets across entities, but this is one of the unknowns that we have at this point. We have a question outstanding on this precise point at the moment. Jose Miguel is asking if existing Spanish customers would be forced to switch to the CNMV entity, and we think, to the best of our knowledge, not for existing customers. I.e., the choice is the customers, because you approached us before Brexit happened. So again, Manuel is saying maybe if like existing customers prefer to stay where they are, I mean, it's their right to stay where they are. We're not going to force them unless the CNMV forces us, and nothing suggests that that will be the case. So Peter is asking whether clients from the EU will have a possibility to trade US ETFs via our IB accounts under the FCA. And the answer is yes, provided they have approached us under reverse solicitation and have chosen to paper with the FCA. So the answer is it's your choice, Peter. Jose Miguel is asking whether we'll offer the same payment methods for CNMV, and I think the answer is in the beginning, we will just support bank deposits and possibly credit cards. I don't think we will enable credit cards or Skrill. Trustly is actually kind of bank-based, so to the best of my knowledge, we will support it. It's really, I would have to look into by when something goes live. The first offering will be EU-based accounts with bank transfers. Okay, so Manuel is asking whether having a CNM, like a Spanish license, we would have to report to Spain, the Spanish clients, even if they remain to the FCA. Okay, so as a OECD regulated investment firm, we don't really have to report Spanish clients to the CNMV or any regulator, but we operate under the common reporting standards, whereas we are forced to report to the home regulator, in this case the FCA, or actually the home tax authority, in this case Her Majesty's Revenue Service. We have to report any customers who are not UK customers, and that has applied for a while, and it will apply going forward as well. So we would not really report you to the regulator, but we would have to report you to the tax authorities in the national country. So we would have, in this case, what that means is we would report Spanish customers, like non-UK customers, so anybody other than the British customers, we would have to report to HMRC for common reporting standards under the FCA entity. And similarly, we would have to report any non-Spanish customers to the Spanish Hacienda, because there's an automated exchange of information that tax authorities have across the world. But that has applied, I believe, since 2017. Aris is asking if we have enough clients in the UK to keep the UK FCA regulated entity going in the long term. And the answer is yes. And even if we didn't, we would most likely choose to stay FCA regulated, because we're pushing quite hard in the professional side of things. And we do not think that professional managers are going to move away from the FCA quite as quickly as the EU regulators believe. Jose Miguel is asking is whether not offering other payment methods for the Spanish entity is a matter of priority, or because the payment methods are forbidden in Spain. So quite frankly, Jose Miguel, I think the kind of customers we wish to attract are typically, we're looking for, like, these payment methods are actually quite expensive for us. So, and they're actually risky in some ways. So we'd much rather operate without risk and at a faster speed with the banks than we will with other payment methods. So in the long run, the more we can take through the bank, the better in terms of both cost, headaches, and compliance issues. So we will always have alternative payment methods, because that's a kind of a market standard demand, but we will prioritize and encourage people to use the bank. Jose Miguel is asking whether it'll be possible to trade on interactive brokers through the CNMV, and the answer is yes. Jose is asking if money is transferred to a Spanish bank, will the withdrawals have to be no fee using the SEPA system? So we've currently got a fee for withdrawals, not so much because the bank charges it from us, but to discourage people from kind of withdrawing all the time. So I believe we're actually looking at improvements to be made in our payment infrastructure, which will hopefully make it far easier to automate transactions, which would potentially make it easier for us to lower costs that we pass on to customers. But Jose, the cost that we pass on for withdrawals is not so much for the cost of the bank, although we do carry a cost for the bank, as it is to deter withdrawals and also to cover the administrative overheads of processing the payments. Manuel is asking whether the extra insurance we have with the FCA will cover the EU license, and the answer is, if we find an insurer who does it, then for sure. But at this point, this is something new. Like most of the insurers are actually UK based. That's kind of the most developed insurance market for this kind of stuff, and they are looking into ways to make this service, which has been quite profitable for them, extensive to non-UK entities. So it's something we're looking into. I can't unfortunately at this time guarantee. It's certainly our intention is to offer the exact same terms of service under any regulation we operate, both the EU and FCA ones and any future ones. Pure pip producer is asking whether the Brexit will have an impact on the private label that we're forecasting, and the answer is not to the best of my knowledge. I think the private label essentially is not affected. It's not more or less affected than any of our other services by this. Okay, well, that was a lot of questions, and I'm really grateful for the interaction. It's always great to hear from you guys and learn about your concerns. So I don't know if you have any other kind of non-Brexit related questions that you think I can help you with. If you do, or if you have any other questions, now is the time to post them. If not, I think we're essentially done with this. Manuel is making a very good suggestion that we should create a questions and answers document, which we will produce. Unfortunately, at this point, with the politicians having all these conversations still, it's sort of a bit of a moving target. So I'm really hoping that we'll get a bit more clarity in the coming couple of weeks. And yeah, if come November we're still in the same place as today, then we will basically put our Q&A to the best of our knowledge and then adjust accordingly as we go. But yes, for sure, this is a situation which is going to create a lot of questions. And also, sorry that that I can't provide more clarity on this. Unfortunately, there's not much more that we know that you know, because I don't think the politicians even themselves know. So, yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Thank you for the kind words that some of you are sharing with me, Jose Miguel. I really appreciate. I'll make my best to make myself more available. I think it's been good that I sort of came out of these webinars in some ways, because as you know, I'm not a trader and you guys are here for the trading. But I'm always happy to cover any of the subjects that I feel I can contribute with. Okay, sounds like we're good. Thank you so much for dedicating a Thursday afternoon to us. I hope you have a great time with your families, or whatever it is you choose to do on a Thursday afternoon. I will not keep you for any longer. Again, any questions you have, feel free to share with our support team, and we'll make our best to put those into our Q&A document that we will hopefully publish reasonably soon. This session has been recorded, so we will also post it out for you to review if you want to, or to share with third parties. And I will make the presentation, the document that I've shared, also available in case anybody thinks it's useful. Okay, so thank you so much, and yeah, stay tuned. More things to come in the near future, but for now, that's it on the Brexit side of things. Take care, guys. Bye bye. Have a good evening. Bye.